Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Matt Murdoch of Nelson and Murdoch Avocados at Law. How is everybody doing today? Yes, I am back. I popped in on Wednesday of last week, but I didn't do my other shows due to pneumonia. So if you see the rebroadcast of Wednesday's show, you can get an idea of my trip to the ER. But I am doing a lot better. I say I'm between 85 and 90% back to normal. So I'm Murdoch of Nelson and Murdoch. So figure that's the best. Well, I'm probably closer to Foggy than I am Matt. But hey, Diggs, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, so we are going to cover the news, and then I am going to do this as kind of a pre-show for tonight's or tomorrow morning's, depending on your time zone. Debut of the new Loki series on Disney Plus. I am super excited for Loki. I mean, big excitement for that, and gonna get you guys all ready for that. But I wanted to cover some news stuff. One of which just came up a little while ago, and this seems to be a regular story for me. Is who the new cast member is for Knives Out 2 Electric Boogaloo, or I think Kyle calls it Stab Harder or something like that. Anyway, the new cast member is just announced is from Outer Banks, the Netflix smash hit series. I wonder who defines things as smash hits. Well, from Netflix Outer Banks is Madeline Klein has now been added to the Daniel Craig, Rian Johnson film, which already has Dave Bautista, Janelle Monáe, Catherine Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Kate Hudson, and Ed Norton. So that is quite the cast they're building. But then again, they had an incredible cast for the first film. So it is absolute Knives Out back in the habit. I like that one. Yeah, I think it's going to be, I am all in for murder mysteries, especially these big cast murder mysteries like Knives Out, like the Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot series. So absolutely looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to Death on the Nile when they figure out when they'll finally put it out and what to do with Armie Hammer. So that's our first news story, is that cast just keeps growing and growing. I'm expecting there's going to probably be at least one or two big names added before we're all said and done. Okay, moving on. This is kind of an interesting one. Brian Fuller is going to direct a reboot or a new version or whatever we want to call it of Stephen King's Christine for Blumhouse Productions. Now, Fuller has quite a pedigree when it comes to these things. I mean, he's worked on Star Trek Discovery, but he's worked on American Gods. Hannibal was his show. Heroes. He even did a reboot of the Munsters that was called Mockingbird Lane, that starred like Eddie Izzard and Portia Del Rossi, and I cannot remember the actor's name, but he was in Stand By Me, and he was, I think, in Sliders. But that he played the father. But it was a very interesting version, and I found it on just last night. I was watching it online because the pilot, or the movie as they refer it to, of Mockingbird Lane is out there online if you look for it. And it was a lot better than I expected. I'm surprised NBC didn't decide to pick that up and run with it. But if you're not familiar with Christine, that is the story. Originally, it was done in 1983. It was adapted in 1983 by John Carpenter. But it tells the story about this young, shy kid named Arnie, who comes out of his shell when he buys and fixes up a 1958 Plymouth Fury. Let's see. JD says, it's very strange. Christine always felt to me like a one-off of the 80s. It's simply enough. It's a simple enough story, but I guess Hollywood needs franchises. Hey, they'll take anything that might get people in the seats, you know? That's the key. So if you have something that's tied to a good memory or something like that, they're gonna redo it and make some money off of it. But of course, so this 1958 Plymouth Fury, he fixes up, but it's got a mind of its own and likes to kill people, which is the plot of the movie. Now, interestingly enough, the guy that played Arnie Cunningham was an actor named Keith Gordon, who doesn't do a lot of acting anymore, but he directs, and he has directed a lot of TV shows. Probably something, whatever you watch, he's probably done at least an episode of. And one of the shows in particular is he was a regular director on Dexter. I think he did 10 episodes, one of which was called The Dark Defender, which was episode 5 of season 2. And I know that because that's the episode I appeared in. I got to play a dead body in the comic book shop. I even had a name. I was Dead Denny Foster. That was my call sheet name. And Keith was the director I worked with. So I actually got to interact with him. So just thinking of Christine kind of reminded me of that. And now that he's a director, which is very cool. The best can come out of remaking Christine is it paves the way for a Maximum Overdrive reboot. I don't think they should do a Maximum Overdrive reboot. That movie was just perfect the way it is. The big green goblin head on the truck, the music, Emilio Estevez. You don't want to redo that. That's already good. Don't mess with Maximum Overdrive. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This has to do with DC League of Super Pets. The movie trailer came out, or a teaser for it, and Dwayne Johnson revealed the voice cast. And they've got a lot of big names in this thing. You've got Kevin Hart, who will do just about anything with Dwayne Johnson, Keanu Reeves, Kate McKinnon, Vanessa Bayer, John Krasinski, Diego Luna, and Natasha Lyons. Now, they haven't said who's playing who, but the film is set to be released May 20th of 2022. So it's less than a year away. Now, since Dwayne Johnson's in it and John Krasinski's in it, no, I confused John Krasinski with Zachary Levi. I was going to say, you got Black Adam and Shazam, but no, he's not. Krasinski is not Shazam. So who knows what these who will be playing what, but it should be a lot of fun. Can you say Kevin Hart is a big name? Is that a size joke, Kyle? Really? Is that a size joke? All right. He's only 5 feet tall. Yes, but he fills audiences, doesn't he? People show up and they know who Kevin Hart is. So, how tall are you, Kyle? Kyle? How tall are you, Kyle? I don't think Kyle wants to answer. Okay. You are not 6'3". Okay, you might be 6'3". I've never met you in person, but I don't think you're 6'3". Who knows? Okay, let's move on. Okay, well, you're still short, Kyle. I'm 6'6". Let's go on. Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry seems to have looked in his bank account and thought, that might not be funny. Or that might not be enough money in there, because he's decided he's bringing back Medea for a 12th time. He has agreed with Netflix to do a Medea Homecoming to be released sometime in 2022. Now, he had said in 2019 that a Medea family funeral would be the last time that we would see that character. But his movies have made over $1 billion at the box office. $1 billion with a B. So once more into the dress and wig, and we'll get another Medea movie. Okay, moving on to, this is a neat one. If you watched Sweet Tooth over the weekend, which everybody's talking about Sweet Tooth, Jim Mickle, the co-creator of Netflix Sweet Tooth, will be directing the adaptation of Donny Cat's graphic novel, God Country. Now, Cates himself has written the screenplay, and it tells the story of Emmett Quinlan, an elderly widower with dementia that is more than a handful for his children and the local police. He gets into a lot of trouble. But when a tornado levels his home, Emmett rises from the ashes with his mind and body restored and an enchanted sword that gives him the power to take on these otherworldly creatures that are suddenly drawn to the Lone Star State. Now, they say that this is supposed to merge superhero movies with Southern charm or that Texas feel. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, so God Country, and it's, Donny Cates has actually written the script himself. So I like that. I look forward to seeing that. Now, we got one other news story, and I'm hoping I drawn this out long enough for Kyle to get ready. But I wanted to talk about Batwoman, which I haven't really been watching this season, but I need to get back into it. But one of the characters on there, which is absolutely great, is Cameron Johnson, who plays Luke Fox, who is Batwoman's assistant and kind of helps out. And of course, that's Lucius Fox's son. Well, in the comics, he becomes Batwing. Well, the CW has announced, and they're taking the character in the series to that. And Johnson has even said that that's originally why he signed up, because he wanted to bring another hero of color to TV, and they've released the photos of the costume. And if Kyle's ready, look at this. This looks like it's right out of the comic to me. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. They have done a really good job. Now, the CW does good job with costumes, but they're usually not as accurate to the comic books. But this looks phenomenal to me. I cannot wait. So he's going to be Batwing go for the last few episodes of the season, and we'll have to see where that goes story-wise. Like I said, I am not current on Batwoman. I need to be. I need to catch up on that. I'm bad. Right after Crisis on Infinite Earths, I watched like the end of that season of Black Lightning, caught a couple Flash episodes, and just kind of faded away. I just haven't been keeping up on it because Arrow was my favorite. And to me, that was what kept the Arrowverse together. So without Arrow, I'm not as inclined to focus on the shows, and I just haven't gotten back to them. But I will. Yeah. JD says, looks good and believable material, like a motorcyclist clothing modified. Yeah, I think they did a really good job with that. So I'm looking forward to, but how it looks on screen, or how it looks in a still photo, and how it looks in action could be very different. So right now it looks good, but let's see how it looks actually in the show and with him actually doing stunts and doing stuff like that. So, all right. Before we move on to Loki, let me remind you guys that we're doing Pride Month, and we're having a bunch of guests all month long. So if you want to see what the schedule is going to be, go out to thecomicshoppingexperience.com and sign up for our mailing list. And they will send you what our schedule is, who our guests are going to be, stuff like that. And you can keep up with us. Also, you can follow us on Instagram or TikTok. If you're young enough to be on TikTok, I am not. I don't have a TikTok account and wouldn't know what to do with one if I had one. But on Instagram and on TikTok, we are at @_EXP1. So follow us on both of those. Also, while you're watching this, do me a favor. Hit the like and subscribe buttons and ring the bells and all that stuff, because help spread the word about this. We want to get more and more people, get more of a community going, and try to build this up as much as possible. So Kyle keeps insisting on Dan that I'm TikTok famous. I'm not exactly sure what that means or what that entails, but I will take his word for it. He is a producer of the show. So, all right. let's see. How many of you are excited for the debut of Loki? You know, I mean, we've been waiting. We had The Mandalorian season 2. Then we had WandaVision. Then we had Falcon and Winter Soldier. And while we have currently The Bad Batch, that doesn't quite feel like the big event series like we've been having. And Loki definitely does. Loki feels like it's going to be a huge event series. And again, I am absolutely excited for it. I think Tom Hiddleston is an absolute home run when it comes to the character. It was probably some of the best casting that Marvel's ever done. Now, I know that he originally tried out for Thor. He auditioned for Thor and then got Loki because of his audition. And I don't know how much his initial connection to Kenneth Branagh was involved. You know, like I said, I don't know the behind the scenes where it came, you know, how different people got asked to audition. But I do know that Kenneth Branagh and Tom Hiddleston had worked together in the past on a series called Wallander, which was a classic style British cop show that would do these, you know, like instead of doing hour episodes all the time, they would do bigger, like 2-hour, like little mini movies. And they would do like 3, 6, whatever it is, a season. And Kenneth Branagh was the star, and Tom Hiddleston was one of the cops that worked for him. And this was quite a few years ago. And if you're looking for Wallander, I found it on Netflix. Absolutely loved the series. But it's, again, your classic British detective series. Where, no, I think it's actually set in Finland. This is actually, you know, slightly different. But, you know, the main detective has a drinking problem, family issues, and problems with authority, and looks like he's basically a train wreck most of the time. But he solves the crimes. That's your classic British cop show, and I love them. Absolutely love them. And Wallander was really, really good. So if you are looking for something to binge on Netflix, check out Wallander, and check out Kenneth Branagh, the original director of Thor, and Tom Hiddleston. Tom Holland's a completely different character in the MCU. So, all right. So let's talk about Loki. Now, what we do know about the show so far is that it's going to be 6 episodes, with the first one debuting tonight-ish, depending on where you are. It'll be midnight on the West Coast, 3 a.m. on the East Coast. I think that's how it works. 1, 12, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And yeah, I always have to visualize the map in my mind, the 4 segments to do the time zones. But the head writer for the show is Michael Waldron, who is also writing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or in the Multiverse of Madness. He came from Rick and Morty. He wrote, the thing that got him the job on Loki was a spec script he wrote called The Worst Man in the World, which is about a time traveler who is being hunted by a woman, and they fall in love. But I guess, and the script's never been made, or the movie's never been made, but the script was good enough that it caught the attention of Marvel, and they brought him in to do this. Plus, he's got the sensibilities of Rick and Morty, which is absolutely crazy, and deals with multiverses. Though they don't do time travel. If you're not a Rick and Morty fan, from what I understand, they have a whole thing about time travel. They put it in a box and put it on a shelf to never use. So they don't do time travel, but they do multiverses. Another show that he's working on is the Stephen Amell show that he's doing, Heels, which is the wrestling show. So you can see he's got an interesting pedigree. The director is Kate Herron, who is directing all the episodes. And, of course, Hiddleston is back as Loki. I'm going to slaughter some of these names because some of them are not names I'm used to pronouncing. But Gugu Mbatha-Raw will be playing Judge Renslayer, who just about everybody assumes is Judge Ravonna Renslayer, who has important ties to the MCU. Owen Wilson is in it, playing Mobius M. Mobius, who is a character from the comics who is actually based on a great and deceased writer from Marvel Comics named Mark Gruenwald. In the comics, he looks exactly like Mark Gruenwald. Here, Wilson pulls off a pretty good version of it. Another person in the cast is Wunmi Musaku. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. And she plays one of the TVA officers who are hunters. That is the one that we see in the trailer actually hitting Loki across the face with her staff. She's supposed to be important and part of this team. Other people who are cast, but we don't know who they're going to play. Sophia DiMartino, Sasha Lane, and the great Richard E. Grant. So that is the cast. Now, what they're going to be playing, we're not exactly sure. We've got some ideas of what might be going on. I'll get into that in a few minutes. But I kind of want to give you the history of Loki. You know, so if you're not caught up with the MCU, first thing, why aren't you? Because if you're watching this, that means you have Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus, that means you have almost all of the MCU movies. You have everything that Loki appears in. You have Thor, Thor the Dark World, Thor Ragnarok. You have the Avengers. You have Avengers Endgame. That's pretty much all of Loki's appearances. Also, they have released, you know how before WandaVision they did Marvel Legends, which were like these 7 or 8 minute episodes that give you the highlights of Wanda and Vision before the show started. They released 4 for Falcon Winter Soldier. They released Falcons, Winter Soldiers, Sharon Carter's, and Baron Zemo. Well, they have released 2 for Loki, which are available now. I mean, right now you could turn this off and go watch Disney Plus, and I don't recommend that because you just stay here for the next 36 minutes until this show's over. But if you turned on Disney Plus and went to Marvel Legends, you would find 2. One for Loki, which covers a lot of what I'm going to go over, but does it very quickly, and I'm going to go a little more in depth. The other one has to do with the Tesseract, which I believe is the Space Stone. And yeah, so the Space Stone or the Tesseract gets its own Marvel Legends, which of course ties into Captain America, the First Avenger, where Red Skull had it and they fought over it. It ties into Captain Marvel, where it is the source of her power and the engine that Marvel was creating. And of course, it ties into the Avengers. It ties into the Endgame and Infinity War. I think that's all the places the Tesseract shows up. Yeah, pretty sure. But you've got all those tie-ins there. And that's all on Marvel Legends. So check those out if you need refreshers on those. But again, I'm going to go over this just after the break. I will go over the history of Loki. The show itself should be pretty wild. And one of the things that I came across is Michael Waldron, the showrunner, or excuse me, head writer. They don't use the term showrunner for these, but then Marvel thinks about these shows differently. They consider them broken up mini movies, 6-hour movies or whatever it is. And Waldron said in an interview with Digital Spy, I believe, that pretty much whenever they came up with, they had pretty much free reign on doing the story. And if they came up with someone they wanted to appear, they just had to check with legal to find out if they had the rights to do it. Now, this might not be MCU characters, because we've seen in the trailer there is references to D.B. Cooper and to the video game Pluribus, I believe it's called, which is both the urban legend game. So there's other things that might pop up in the series. This is a time traveling series and a universe jumping series, or a multiverse series. So what he said was, expect the unexpected. Now, you would think after Paul Bettany talked about this amazing actor that he'd always wanted to work with, but never had the chance until now, and how that created a firestorm of speculation, only to find out later that he was talking about himself. You would think anybody involved with either Marvel or a Disney Plus series would simply never mention cameos or guest stars at all. Yet, he said, expect the unexpected. So, Mephisto? Arnim Zola? Who is it we didn't get in the other series we thought we might get that might pop? Steve Rogers on the moon. We're going to get Steve Rogers on the moon. Yeah, I think that's that. So, hey, Kyle, are you back with us? Because I'd like to go to break before we go into the ding. All right. Kyle, why don't you take us to our break, and when I come back, I will go into deep dive into the history of Loki in the MCU. Back in a minute.
You are watching Minute to Skim It on The Experience, so hello. All right, we've got lots of books to review for you guys today. And Hannah just basically showed up just the number ones and showed them to me, and I was like, oh, we have
just for the indies.
Just for the indies, yeah. I was like, we have got a lot to do.
Hey, and welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. We are talking about tonight's premiere, or tomorrow morning's premiere of Loki. Also, I need to make a note to myself, and something I've been meaning to talk to Kyle about is the little opening teaser I've got for my show, where the graphics are great. It's an interesting choice of music compared to all the great rock songs or rock themes that everybody else gets. I get this little, just feels a little. And I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to say to me about that. So might need to talk to Kyle about that. All right. After the show today, do not turn away. Do not leave. We've got great stuff lined up for today. After this, Black Comic Universe. You want to stick around for that. Then, Minute to Skim It. And after all that, at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, I'll be back with Kyle, who will be on the screen over here. No, over there. It's reversed there. He'll be here, and I'm usually on that side, and we'll be telling you about all the new books hitting the shops this week in the stores this week. What a clever title, huh? Yeah, much better than the Dan Wickline Show. That's arrogant as hell. All right, folks. Let's... he'll be the Bucky to my Falcon. Yeah, okay. I could work with that. Let's do a deep dive into the history of Loki. Now, again, if you're caught up on the MCU, some of this will be old school reminder. If you're not, then this will get you ready for the show. Now, we meet Loki for the first time in the original Thor film during his brother's coronation. Yeah, basically, Odin is tired. I think the Odin sleeps on its way anyway, and he is going to turn over the throne of Asgard to Thor. He thinks Thor is ready. But the coronation is interrupted by some frost giants breaking into Odin's vault. Now, the big destroyer thing comes out, wipes out the frost giants, but they still go to investigate, and Thor is pissed because the frost giants have invaded, Asgard, so he needs revenge for this, or an answer for this incursion, and he wants to lead an invasion force into Jotunheim to teach them a lesson. Well, Odin's like, no, we don't need war. We'll deal with this another way. And Thor he's not going for that. He wants more. He wants to teach him a lesson because he's kind of young, brash, and, kind of a warmonger at that point. That's what his answer is you step out of line, we're going to beat you. You step out of line again, we're going to beat you harder. Well, Loki kind of eggs him on. It's like, yeah, I absolutely agree with you, brother. We need to go do this. Let's do this. And they get the Warriors 3, which is Hogun, Fandral, and Volstagg. And they also get Lady Sif. And the 6 of them head off, and Heimdall's like, yeah, you can go because I want to know how the hell they got in here. And they head down to Jotunheim to start trouble. And start trouble they do. And they get overwhelmed. And as they're trying to get out of there, because there's a lot of frost giants in Jotunheim, Odin has to come to the rescue. And when he does, it leaves Asgard and Jotunheim on the verge of war. King Laufey is, angry. Odin's angry. He's enraged by Thor's actions, and he has to teach him a lesson. So he strips Thor of his power, takes away his hammer, and casts him down to earth to basically learn his lesson, to find humility and to become worthy again. And that's basically what's going on with Thor through the movie is he goes down there and he finds Jane and he ends up helping people, and yeah. But he learns humility while he's on Earth. Meanwhile, Loki discovers when he's in Jotunheim that maybe something's not right. maybe he isn't told the exact truth. And he discovers he is actually he's a frost giant. And he confronts Odin and, wants to know what's going on. And when Odin finally tells him that he is the offspring of King Laufey, and Odin had found him shortly after his birth and decided to bring him back to Asgard to raise him alongside Thor. And I think it was a move to kind of bolster peace between the two. Didn't work out very well. But, they raised him as their own. And Loki just gets angry and pushes and pushes. And again, Odin was already on the verge of going into the Odin sleep because he's old at this point. He's tired. He's worn out. And this pushes him into the Odin sleep. He's just too much for him. Well, with Thor gone, banished to Earth, and Odin the Odin sleep, Loki becomes the king. He's now wearing the crown. And this was all his doing. He's the one that let the frost giants in during the coronation, and he spurred Loki to go attack the frost giants, and he decides that he's going to let Laufey and the frost giants in to Asgard to kill Odin in the Odin sleep. Well, that's not exactly what he ends up doing. He waits till Laufey gets in there and is about to kill Odin, and then he kills Laufey to prove his worth to Odin. Well, Thor figures all this out, that Loki's been lying. The Warriors 3 find their way to Earth to bring him back. He becomes worthy when he sacrifices himself to save others. And in doing so, he gets his powers back. He comes back to Asgard and confronts Loki. And they have this big battle on the Rainbow Bridge. The bridge gets broken. And Loki is fallen off the bridge, and Thor's holding him. And Odin shows up. And basically, Loki tries to explain that he did all this to prove himself to Odin. And Odin just shows he's disappointed. And this breaks Loki completely. And he just releases his grip and falls off into the abyss of space. Now, you would think that's where Loki's story would end. Nay. Loki goes on. Somehow he ends up going through a wormhole and ends up in a place called Sanctuary, where he meets the Other and makes a deal to serve Thanos. He is given the scepter, which ends up having an Infinity Stone in it, the Mind Stone. And he's sent to Earth to retrieve the Tesseract, which we learned earlier has an Infinity Stone in it, and to prepare Earth for conquest. So the basic plan, Loki goes to Earth, and he wants to take Earth's big heroes and pit them against each other by bringing them all together and releasing the Hulk on them. It's kind of a strange plan. But it works in so much that they do end up fighting and tearing apart a helicarrier and all of that. But eventually, Loki opens up a portal and starts bringing through the Chitauri army, which, again, were from Thanos. Well, in doing so, it creates the Battle of New York, where the Avengers actually come together as a team, and they work together and stop the invasion. Iron Man goes up through the portal and destroys the mothership, and all the Chitauri happen to be linked together in like one hive mind, like the Borg. And when you shut down the hive ship, all the soldiers take down, and the Avengers are able to take out Thor. It's actually the Hulk who kind of beats him senseless and calls him a puny god, which may be one of the best scenes in movies, period. But Loki gets captured, and Thor takes the Tesseract and Loki back to Asgard. they don't take the scepter. They don't take Loki's scepter. That stays with S.H.I.E.L.D., which, of course, has been infiltrated by Hydra. So Hydra ends up with the scepter, and it's used to unlock the abilities of Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff. And then the Avengers have to get the scepter back. So why Thor just didn't take that one too? No idea. But you still with me here? Now, Thor takes him home, and Odin condemns Loki to an Asgardian dungeon for his crimes. Which you would think, great, he's going to be in the dungeon for a while, but nay. This is when Malekith and the Dark Elves decide to attack looking for the ether, which, of course, turns out to be an Infinity Stone, the Reality Stone. So we have the Mind Stone, the Reality Stone, and the Space Stone all tied to Loki. Okay, so they go after the ether, they invade, which ends up in Jane Foster. Thor takes her to Asgard, so of course the Dark Elves attack Asgard, and in doing so, they kill Frigga. Frigga is Thor's mother and Loki's adopted mother, who Loki loved very much and is heartbroken by her death, but of course shows it the way Loki does. And Thor ends up releasing Loki to get his help to take on the Dark Elves. And Loki shows him how to get out of Asgard to Svartalfheim, where they attack and they get the ether out of Jane Foster, but Malekith gets it and takes it. So now they have to stop him, but in doing so, Loki is killed. Or so we believe. Turns out Loki faked his death, made his way back to Asgard, and in a way we've never seen, he ends up taking over the throne, and Odin ends up on Earth somehow. Not quite sure how that happens. They really don't tell us. It's just suddenly Loki's on the throne, and Thor has gone back to Earth to be with Jane, but Odin's on Earth. It's a little confusing. It doesn't really make a lot of sense how it happens, but that's where we are. And that's where we end up going into Thor Ragnarok. So that was all Thor the Dark World. So if you don't want to watch Thor the Dark World, I've just saved you time. A lot of people don't want to watch Thor the Dark World. It's not nearly as bad as people give it. You have to remember that Thor the Dark World may not be it may be the lowest or one of the lowest of the Marvel movies, but it's still a Marvel movie. And even the worst Marvel movie is better than a lot of the movies that are out there. So you may not love Thor the Dark World, but it's still better than a lot of other movies out there. And with all the stuff they've been doing over the last few years, it's made that a better movie. It doesn't fix the fact that they way underused Malekith or Christopher Eccleston as an actor as Malekith. But it's a better movie looking back at it now. Well, Thor is traveling around trying to figure out what's going on. He takes out Surtur, goes back, and now he knows that Loki is Odin, and he forces Odin to reveal himself. And then the two of them head to Earth to find Odin. Well, when they get there, Odin is dying, makes peace with his two boys, but fails to mention that when he dies, his oldest sibling or his oldest child would suddenly be released from her banishment. That would be Hela, who is very powerful and pops up on Earth immediately, first looking for Odin when he's gone, and she's angry for being banished and wants revenge, plans on taking over Asgard. She confronts Thor and Loki. Thor throws Mjolnir at her, and she just breaks it apart. Loki tries to get them to escape through the Rainbow Bridge, calling Heimdall. She chases after them, and in doing so, throws them out of, I guess that's still the Rainbow Bridge, that transport beam thing. And they both end up on Sakaar. Now, Loki gets thrown out first, and the way wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, he ends up getting there a couple weeks before Thor, makes friends with the Grandmaster who runs the planet, where Thor shows up, gets captured by Valkyrie, and put into the Gladiator games. Now, eventually, Thor and Valkyrie and Hulk/Banner decide to leave and go up against the Grandmaster, and Loki ends up helping them. And in doing so, he kind of gets his redemption arc. You know, he still looks like he's going to do bad things, stab people in the back, and he's still the grandiose, me narcissist. But he does show up on Asgard with the ship and does help stop. Well, they really don't stop anything. They rescue the Asgardians they can. And while Thor is fighting Hela with Valkyrie, Loki is sent into the throne room to take the head of Surtur and put it in the eternal flame to bring Surtur back, because Thor's plan to defeat Hela is to bring Ragnarok. So by bringing Surtur back, it launches Ragnarok, and that defeats Hela, and the rest of them just get on the ship and take off, saying we'll find a new home for Asgard. So Thor Ragnarok ends with Loki standing beside Thor, who's kind of on his throne. It's kind of the captain's chair, with the remainders of the Asgardians and a couple friends, and they're heading off into space to find a new home. The problem is Loki can't help himself. When he was in the throne room, he grabbed the Tesseract. And we know Thanos was looking for the Infinity Stones. So Thanos and the Black Order show up on the ship and devastate a bunch of people. Kills Heimdall. Just before Heimdall launches Hulk. They beat Hulk, but he launches Banner back towards Earth and then kills Heimdall. He finally turns over the Tesseract to save Thor's life, and then swears allegiance to Thanos, but in doing so is actually trying to trick him and tries to stab Thanos, but gets stopped, and Thanos chokes him to death. And this time, Loki really dies. He's dead. It's the end of Loki. No more Loki Laufsen, or Odinson, whichever way he wants to go that day. Laufeyson. He's dead. We're done. Which, of course, isn't the case because we have a TV series coming up. Well, if you watched Endgame, you saw what happened. After Thanos used the Infinity Stones to wipe out half the galaxy, the Avengers come up with the idea, hey, let's go to an earlier time, get the stones, bring it to our time, do a snap to set back the bring all the people back. Now the reason they don't just undo the snap in the first place and put everybody back at the same time is because people like Tony Stark didn't want to lose his daughter in his marriage. A little bit selfish. But anyway, so they go get the stones, come back. Well, it's not without its problems. When they go back to get the Tesseract, they go to the Battle of New York and the final confrontation with Loki, and they got this big plan all set up, and it's all working perfectly, except for the Hulk doesn't like stairs. And he comes out and he slams the door, hits the future Tony Stark with the Tesseract in the briefcase. It slides across the ground, pops out, slides up against Loki's foot. He picks it up and teleports away with the Tesseract. And that's where this story comes from, because this causes branches. In Endgame, when Hulk goes to get the time stone from the Ancient One, she explains that without them there, you make these divergent variants of time. And, so the idea was to put the stones back exactly where he took them from. But with Loki taking off, the Avengers don't have that stone. So instead, they go further back in time and get it from when Tony's dad was working on it, and Hank Pym was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. So they get it from a different time, but that means that Loki is now a variant, a time variant with the Tesseract. Now in the trailers, we see him pop up in the desert, far away, and the TVA shows up, the Time Variance Authority. The Hunters, they show up, seeing all the timeline variants taking off, and that's where we see the one Hunter bash him in the face with the staff, which I am looking forward to seeing tonight. I'm going to see that as it happens. So this is a different Loki we're going to follow in the new series. This isn't the Loki that has gone through the defeat of he's gone through the defeat of the Battle of New York, but he's not the one that lost Frigga and actually helped to lose Frigga, because when Kurse gets out in the thing, he actually points Kurse in the right direction, and Kurse goes and kills Frigga. So he's not the one that sacrifices himself. That's not Loki. That's not the Loki at the end of Thor Ragnarok, or in the beginning of Endgame. This is the narcissistic, still thinks that he's filled with glorious purpose guy. That's the Loki we're finding. And he's getting taken in by the TVA, which is the Time Variance Authority. And normally they would just erase a variant, but it looks like there's someone else manipulating the timeline after that, and the TVA can't track them. So Mobius, Owen Wilson's character, comes up with the idea of using the Loki variant, because they're thinking that it's another Loki variant who's causing all the damage to the timeline. So they're thinking of using this Loki variant to find the other one, which is the basis for the story. It's a time-traveling mystery, crime mystery, or murder mystery, basically. And that's what's going on. Is Mobius... think of it's the old trope of the cop who gets a criminal out of jail to help catch another criminal. Think of this as 48 Hours meets Doctor Who, because that's pretty much what's going on here. Mobius is going to use the variant Loki to track this down, and that's going to take us all over the place. We're going to see other variants of Loki too. We'll see the D.B. Cooper variant. We'll see the President Loki variant. There's rumors of a Lady Loki, and that might be the part Sophia DiMartino's playing. There's also rumors of a possible Kid Loki. So we're going to get a lot of variants of Loki, and the big bad might be a Loki. Richard E. Grant may be playing a version of Loki. That's another rumor. Again, that's just a rumor, though. Don't know for sure. Now, we're got a couple more minutes here, so let me wrap this up with, this show should be absolutely crazy. You're going to get the Rick and Morty feel. If you don't know Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty was originally created as a Back to the Future fan film parody thing. That's why you look at them, it's like Rick and Morty, Doc and Marty. Well, the head writer said that, this is going to be crazy, is what it is. And they're worried because in Endgame, time travel is just kind of brushed over. There's some hints to it, but now they know they have to be really focused on the time travel. So we're going to get it better explained and more rules. Also, this series will likely lead into 2 other films. You've got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which the head writer is also the writer of, Michael Waldron. So there's going to be multiverse stuff going on. And it might also be what starts to break. Wanda may have started it, then Loki are the people that are breaking the multiverse. But the other movie it might tie into is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And the reason is that the TVA and Judge Renslayer have ties to Kang the Conqueror. Judge Renslayer is likely Ravonna Renslayer, who is Kang's big long-lost love. And Kang was part of the TVA for a while, I believe. And he's going to be the big villain of Ant-Man. And he's going to be played by Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country. So this series, if you're not watching the series thinking, well, I don't need to watch them because I just watched the MCU films, I don't care about the TV shows, that's not the case. They actually do fully connect, not like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which kind of brushes aside, or the Netflix series that mentioned the main series. These will directly connect, and there's a good chance that there might be some Kang Easter eggs in here, some Doctor Strange Easter eggs, those kind of things. Those are the things we're expecting, or at least anticipating as a possible. I don't think we're going to get any huge MCU cameos. I don't think Thor is going to show up or anything like that, but I will expect some fun stuff. Like I said, I expect the series to be crazy, but also fun. And if you've seen any of the early reviews, they sent out the first 2 episodes to a lot of people. Not to me. Got to figure out how to get those. But the people who have seen them have been absolutely loving this show. So it debuts tonight, midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern. I will do a review / discussion show. I'm thinking of doing it in the Thursday night slot because I want to give people a chance to see the show. And since we're going to do spoilers, give them a full, instead of just a couple hours after they might have seen it. So tomorrow's show, I will figure out what to do about that, or if there's something in it that might help. But Thursday's show will be the big spoilery discussion. So join me on Thursday for that. Tomorrow we'll have a different topic. We'll figure it out. If you guys want to suggest topics, you can always get a hold of me and let me know your suggestions to things to cover. But I'm going to wrap this up. We're getting close to the end of the show. Stick around for Black Comic Universe, then Minute to Skim It, and then I'll be back with Kyle to end the show, the end of the evening with In Stores This Week, as we'll go through some of the big books hitting the shops this week. Remember to follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at @the_EXP1. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons and all those things. And sign up for our mailing list on comicshoppingexperience.com. And that should be it. Gotta go.